Part 16. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 151. Chapter 151 Garden Mansion. Are you, seriously? It's not that Zhao Xian doubted her ability, it was just that the current smell was so impactful that a stream of air flowed through her nose and straight to the back of her head, causing the Tianling cap to be blown away. The initial taste has already been developed like this, it's hard to say what the middle and later taste will be like. But it was obvious that she was in a bad mood now, and Zhao Xian didn't want to fight her, so he said, "Okay, now that it's done, let's pack it up and go back. It's getting late." "Let me send her back," Arian volunteered. It was still a taxi ride, but as soon as the two of them got into the car, the driver grinned back reflexively. "Hey, girl, you sprayed enough perfume." Arian smiled sheepishly. In fact, as a perfumer, it is not surprising that there are often strange smells on the body. It does not always smell fragrant anytime and anywhere. After all, the smell of spices is very complex, and there are various a refining process. They have also become accustomed to the different looks they may receive in public places, but it is really rare to have such a strong and special taste like today. Even people like Arian, who has been soaked in spices for a long time and is used to it, find it too much, let alone people outside. Suyun was obviously worried. She didn't say anything. She just got in the car and looked out the window, wondering what she was thinking. The driver was a chatterbox, and he couldn't hold back his chatterbox. He opened the window while driving and asked, "Do you mind if I open the window to let some air in?" Arian smiled awkwardly and shook her head. It was indeed better when the night wind came in. "Girl, what brand of perfume did you buy? It's so strong," the driver asked while driving. Small brand," Arian laughed twice. The driver looked understanding, "No wonder it's so strong. Girl, let me tell you, this perfume doesn't have to be particularly strong to be fragrant. Sometimes it should be lighter to make it more attractive. Hey, you just smell it." "No, I met one before. When she got in, I didn't feel anything. Later, when I got out of the car, I realized that my car smelled really good. Even after she got out of the car, she didn't notice anything. It's fragrant. I don't know what brand of perfume it is, but I think it must be a big brand." "Why must it be a big name?" Suyun, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Not to mention Arian, the driver turned his head and looked at her out of the corner of his eye with some surprise. "It's obvious. Only big brand perfumes can last for such a long time, and that fragrance, I think it's a big name brand. It's an international brand. I'm still thinking about saving up enough money to buy a bottle for my wife, but unfortunately I don't know what brand it is." "Hey." Suyun didn't say anything after that. When she got out of the car and was about to close the door, she looked at the driver and said, "It's not just the big international brands that are the best. Driver." She had straightened up and closed the car door. Blinking, the driver probably had to catch up with work, so he started the car and left without arguing with her. "How serious are you to argue with him?" Arian sighed and said. "It's not to be serious, it's just the reality. You see, although the domestic perfume industry has developed rapidly in recent years, and the number of perfumers is also increasing year by year, most people still think that good perfumes and big-name perfumes are from foreign countries. The brand doesn't really recognize our own," Suyun said with emotion. Wu Arian shrugged, "Indeed. But to a certain extent, it is also true. The current overall level in the country cannot be compared with the big international brands. Maybe not now, but definitely in the future, this is also the direction and goal she strives for. One day, she will let her perfume go to the world stage, so that people all over the world can see that China can also produce world-class and top-notch perfumes." "Sister Yun, you're already here, I'm going back first. As she said that, Arian was about to turn around. Wait a minute, Suyun grabbed her and said, we're already here. Come in with me and sit down. I drank too much last time, so I'll entertain you today. No, it's quite late. Arian declined politely, I'm afraid it's too late to take a taxi. Hold her arm without letting go, Suyun smiled, what are you afraid of? At worst, I will ask Su Feng to take you back later. Hearing what she said about Su Feng, Arian's face turned red, it's always troublesome for others. It's not a good thing. It's no trouble, just ask Si Yao to pay him overtime wages. She took Arian's arm and walked into the community. This time she brought the access card, and she could enter directly by swiping the card. This is the second time Arian has come to Yujing Haoding. Last time, she took Si Yao's car and followed Suyun Zhongguang in. She was nervous and worried and had no intention of taking a good look. Now she was walking on foot and found the mansion. The reason why it is a luxury home is not just because it is expensive. Not only is the house large and luxuriously decorated, but it is also reflected in every aspect of the details. The distance between each villa is very large, which not only ensures sufficient sunshine range, but also gives residents private space. The green area of the entire community reaches more than 60%. It can be said that the entire community is a private park. The night view is already amazingly beautiful, and it would be even more beautiful during the day. Following Suyun, she had a general appreciation of the beautiful scenery in the community, and then entered the house that once stunned her. Sit anywhere. Suyun changed her shoes at the entrance. What are you drinking? I can do it. Although this is not the first time, and there are only two of them this time, in such a big and luxurious house, it is inevitable that it will be a little cramped, and it seems that it is not appropriate to place the hands and feet. Sit down next to the sofa and look around. Suyun brought 2 glasses of juice over. She took them and expressed the question in her mind, are you two the only ones living in this house? No servants or anything? I remember when I read novels and TV shows, there were a lot of servants and nannies, not to mention people cheering each other out, and the whole family was bustling with excitement. Si Yao is happy, and so am I. Someone will come regularly to clean and tidy up the lawn and garden, and someone will also do the housework. We feel that this way we have more private space. She agrees with Si Yao on this point. Sure enough, it is difficult for ordinary people to understand the thoughts of rich people. After relaxing while chatting, Arian leaned back and said, if it were me, I would hire hundreds of servants to clean my house every day. I cook and wash clothes, give me massages and chat with me. It's so happy that I don't need it. Suyun couldn't help laughing. 100 strangers are at home every day. Are you sure you won't be afraid? End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 152. Chapter 152. It's your taste. Why should you be afraid? They are all people I hired. She thought about it and felt that there was nothing to be afraid of, and it was even quite beautiful. Shaked her head, Suyun sat down cross-legged opposite her, sipping the juice in small sips. Sister Yun, what are you mixing this with? It smells quite mixed to me. You're not really making a new product, are you? Then this new product is too different. Sniffling, he stood up from sitting in the taxi. Arian has been smelling and analyzing it carefully since then, but the smell is too mixed and she really can't tell what else is there. Perhaps the flavor is too strong and difficult to distinguish? I haven't thought about it, I'm just giving it a try. She shook her head, thinking in her mind. Actually, she was just venting her anger and randomly mixed some spices and essential oils without knowing exactly what she wanted to do, but a few unintentional words from Zhao Xian and Er Yan touched her. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't make something, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be different. Whether it is perfume or spices and essential oils, all the flavors in this world are unique and special in themselves. Every flavor is a gift from nature, so every different clever combination may produce different results. Whether it is light or strong, fresh or charming, it may be very shocking to most people and difficult to accept, but who can guarantee that no one will like it? Well, I think you should actually take a shower first. No matter what, you should clean up the smell first. As she was talking, the sound of a car came from outside. Arian subconsciously stood up from the sofa and said, "Mr. Si is back, it's time for me to leave." "He's not a big tiger, why are you so nervous?" Suyun motioned to her, put down the juice in her hand, and walked toward the door. "I came back very early today." Si Yao just started to say something, then stopped and stood there looking at her, while Su Fen behind him was more direct, a sneeze, ah dash. The first two couldn't hold it back, but the last one covered his mouth and nose and endured it forcefully. Suyun's eyes twitched. Is the smell really that strong? Could it be that since she was in it, she didn't feel much at all? Si Yao looked her up and down, went to the laboratory again today? Are there any new products? A new try. She shrugged and said, how does it feel? Si Yao nodded, very impressive. Arian on the side is really impressed. He is worthy of being a diamond-level male god. His emotional intelligence is extraordinary. Look at his speaking skills. Obviously, Si Yao also noticed that there were other people at home. He glanced at Wu Arian, who was standing beside him, and nodded slightly, which was regarded as saying hello. Hello, Mr. Si. For some reason, when he looked over, Arian's muscles were all tense, and she stood upright reflexively and responded. Suyun couldn't help laughing. We're not in the company. Are you saluting the chief? Habit. Although Suyun told her not to be too cautious, she would always get nervous when facing Si Yao. He was not aggressive, but his own strong aura would make people tense up at any time unconsciously. Nervous, dare not relax. Thinking about it, I really admire Suyun. Not everyone has the courage to stay by his side. Sister Yun, it's getting late, so I'll go back first. She picked up her bag and stood up to leave. It's so late, why don't you just... Before Suyun could finish her words, Si Yao said, Su Feng. With just a shout, Su Feng immediately understood, Miss Wu, I'll see you off. No need. I've already troubled you twice. I can just take a taxi myself. I can still get a taxi now. She waved her hand to refuse. Then I'll take you down to take a taxi, Su Feng continued. Yan. Looking at the two of them, Suyun smiled, walked up to Arian, raised her hand and patted her shoulder, just, be respectful and obey my orders. A sneeze, Su Feng, who was standing aside, couldn't hold it back. Suyun. As soon as they left, Suyun planned to go upstairs and take a shower. She didn't feel anything at first, but Su Feng's continuous sneezing finally made her realize how pungent the smell on her body was. Just now, she had only walked to Arian, but she was still some distance away from him, and he started to sneeze non-stop due to the irritation. This shows how strong the smell would be if she was close to Si Yao. I'm going to take a bath, she said. Just as she was about to turn around, Si Yao grabbed her wrist, pulled her back and rolled her into his arms. I smell bad, don't hug me. She twisted her body and struggled for a while, then whispered. Unexpectedly, Si Yao hugged her even tighter, lowered his head and took a deep breath into her shoulder. Who says it doesn't smell good? The smell on your body smells good. It's your smell, unique to you smell. Suyun. She had to admit that these words were really too cool. Even if they were just to coax her, she would still be able to accept them. Just take it as a compliment. I accept it, but I still have to take a shower, otherwise I won't be able to bear it. She raised her hand and patted his cheek gently, and said with a smile. Suyun took a good bath and was thinking about the wood carving shop. Although the boy had a bad temper, he didn't seem to be an unreliable person. But apart from his phone number, she knew nothing about him. If she contacted him again, without him, matters related to the next new product may have to be put on hold for the time being. The small piece of leftover material I took last time is far from enough to experiment with new products, and people are like this sometimes. The harder it is to get something, the more likely it is that you can't get it, the more you cherish it and never forget it. After much thought, she quickly got out of the bathtub, dried herself, put on her nightgown and came out. Yao had obviously washed up in another bathroom. He was lying on the bed in his pajamas and reading documents. When he heard the noise, he put down the documents in his hand and looked at her. But Soo-Yun's attention was not on him at all. She quickly walked to her clothes and rummaged around. She probably didn't find it. She went to pull out the drawer again but couldn't find it in the drawer. After thinking about it, she turned to look at Yao. Seeing her looking at him, Yao raised his eyebrows, but found that apart from looking at him, her eyes were not focused at all and she was still thinking. Yao couldn't help but say, "Are you looking for?" Before the word what came out, she quickly walked over, opened the door, and went downstairs. Out, out. Yao was completely ignored for the first time. He leaned there and froze for a few seconds. He realized that one day he would also be ignored, and she was still his little wife. Just when he was hesitating whether to stay here and wait for her to come back, or go downstairs to see what she was doing, there were footsteps outside the door, and she came back again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 153. Chapter 153. No one in this world can compare with you. This time, she came back with something in her hand, but Yao couldn't see what it was. Soo-Yun took the small piece of leftover material back to the table, turned on the lamp and sat down to study it carefully. The scent was really special. If it was synthetically prepared, it would be possible, but this was obviously not the case. Completely natural, the scent of the wood itself. She was very interested and wanted to know the source of the wood, but if the boy stopped making it, it would be difficult to find it. If you are looking for someone. She turned around to ask Yao, but she didn't expect him to be standing behind her when she turned around. Instead, she was startled. "Why are you here?" "Then where should I be?" Inexplicably, his voice was filled with resentment. "Have you finally seen me?" "Soo-Yun. I just have something I can't figure out." She gently tugged at the corner of his clothes and said, "I didn't mean to ignore you." "It's even more irritating if you don't mean it." Yao pinched her nose. He couldn't bear to be angry with her. He glanced at the wood in her hand and asked, "Is this the thing that makes you confused?" "Yes," she nodded. "Pinch it up with 2 fingers, bring it to your nose and smell it." He frowns. "This piece of wood smells very good." "Really? You think it smells good too, right? The most important thing is that the scent is quite special. It's not ordinary sandalwood, woody, or any wood scent I've smelled before. I've never seen it before," she says. Yao didn't find it strange. The world is so big, it's normal to see things you haven't seen before. Maybe it's a species you haven't seen before, or maybe it's not purely natural at all. Isn't there grafting technology? You mean grafting synthesis? Soo-Yun shook her head. I saw something like that when I was in southern Yunnan. The raw materials purchased for this new product are like this, but this one is not because of this. She was particularly interested. Looking at her frown, Yao thought for a while and said, "Where did you get this thing?" "The wood carving shop last time." That's easy, just ask the boss where the raw materials are purchased." and it will become clear. He straightened up and felt that the problem was not complicated. No, the boss doesn't know. I got this small piece of leftover material from a handyman in their store. I think only he knows where this comes from. Originally, I wanted him to give it to me. I kept some, but he suddenly stopped doing it. Sighed faintly, a little depressed. Young man, he narrowed his eyes slightly. The point he grasped seemed to be different from the point she wanted to express. However, Suyun, who was immersed in depression, did not notice it yet and continued, well, I think he is not just an ordinary craftsman doing handyman work. I wonder if he suddenly stopped doing it. Does it have anything to do with the wood? Relation. Picking up the wood and looking at it carefully, she didn't know if the whole thing was related. She could only say that it was an intuition. You seem to be very interested in him. Putting his hands on the table, trapping her between himself and the table, Yao leaned down, with a dangerous aura all over his body. To be precise, I'm interested in his wood. But this guy is really weird and has a bad temper, which is quite interesting thinking of that person who has a temper that is like a firecracker and gets angry at the slightest bit. He is really a child. She burst out laughing, and her chin was suddenly pinched. Suyun was stunned for a moment, then blinked in hindsight. Is this person so interesting? He narrowed his eyes slightly, and his voice was filled with a strong smell of jealousy. Suyun, well, it doesn't seem that interesting. Isn't it? Is he jealous now? She was just worried about the wood and didn't think about other aspects at all. Tisk tisk, President Si's vinegar smell is too strong. Isn't it interesting? He was not so easy to coax, but I think you seem to be very interested. Didn't you say it's quite interesting? If Suyun didn't take it seriously just now, but now she has completely cheered up, oh my, is she really jealous this time? No, I mean the wood carvings he made are quite interesting. Yes, the wood carvings are quite interesting. She looked up at him, turning her eyes around and looking at his face. It was just the last time I brought him. Don't you think the pair of little wooden dolls you brought home are very interesting? They are like a pair of twins, right? When I see that wooden doll, I will think of you, me, and you. Yes, in fact, in summary, you are the most interesting, and you are the only one I am most interested in. She was really full of desire to survive. Yao, who was still tense at first, couldn't help but show his flaws and a smile overflowed. Suyun seized the opportunity and leaned forward to give him a kiss on the cheek. You are so jealous and unreasonable. I am just a little carpenter you have only met once. Is it worth being jealous of a big CEO like you? Perhaps Yao felt that he was overreacting, so he let go of his hand and stood up straight, saying, who is jealous? No, Suyun looked at him and snorted softly. I didn't know who it was just now, but the look in his eyes was so scary, and he said he wasn't jealous. Are you sure it's the look in my eyes that can eat people, and nothing else? She couldn't bear the teasing on his face, and he suddenly bent down and picked her up from the stool. Or are you inviting me in disguise? Eat you? Ah, Suyun exclaimed as her body suddenly flew into the air, and she subconsciously hugged his neck. I didn't say that. Don't misunderstand me intentionally. Really? What do you mean? Laying her down on the bed, he leaned against her forehead and looked at her as he spoke. It is true that this chatting posture is more comfortable. Such a close distance and such intimate contact will make him feel like he has her. Yao. She sighed softly and put her hands around his neck. She said, no one in this world can compare with you, no one. Originally he was just teasing her, but when he heard her words, Yao's eyes suddenly darkened. He looked at her with complicated eyes and caressed her cheek with his palm. He said in a low voice, you always think so? Suyun was actually a little puzzled. With his status, he was definitely more than enough for her, but he always seemed to have no sense of security. He was so good to her that she would occasionally wonder if she was living in a fantasy of dreams. Yes, yes, she nodded vigorously and emphasized affirmatively, I will always think so. No one in this world can compare with you. Yao, you are the best, the best, the best. Pull his head down, take the initiative to put on your red lips, and use practical actions to express your feelings. Yao let out a sigh from his throat and kissed her deeply. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Ye. Chapter 154. Chapter 154 I'm not qualified, but you are. It was only after Zhang Shiwei was discharged from the hospital that she learned that Luo Yuanhang had taken away her position as director. Although she was still in the hospital, administrative orders were issued very quickly, and even her office in the company was changed. In Wulan, who didn't know that she was the future CEO's wife, the boss's wife of Wulan, but something like this happened today? She didn't even wait for the title of CEO's wife to stop on her head, and it just flew away. Gone. People in the company would not discuss it in front of her, but the look in their eyes made her feel like she was being laughed at by everyone. Luo Yuanhang, you are really amazing. She couldn't stay in the company at all, and left quickly after arriving. Luo Yuanhang's secretary called him, Mr. Luo, Director Zhang, Miss Zhang just came to the company, but she left again when she found out that you had vacated her office. Follow her, Luo Yuanhang said calmly. As for Zhang Shiwei, after all, they had a good relationship, and he didn't want to be too harsh on her, but whether it was public or private, she was not suitable for the position of director. Letting her continue to stay in this position would not be of any benefit to the company, and everyone would do it in the future. It can also be awkward at work. What's more, he actually knew very well that Zhang Shiwei had great ambitions. She clung to Rosen not just for Wulan. She wanted to be famous, popular, and become a top perfumer. She might even have one day, leave him and climb to a higher position. She is not wrong when people go to higher places. The only fault is that she does not understand herself clearly. Maybe you can get along in other industries, but as a perfumer, if you don't have your own real power, you will be exposed sooner or later. Hang up the call from the company. Luo Yuanhang dialed another number. Hey, is there any result about the investigation I asked you to do? After leaving Wulan, Zhang Shiwei went directly to the hotel to find Rosen. Originally, according to his schedule, he should have left Suzhou City, but because of his injury, he was delayed and was still recovering in his room. Zhang Shiwei knocked on the door. When Rosen saw it was her, he stretched out his hand and pulled her in. Then he pressed her against the door panel and lowered his head to find her lips. She pushed him away with both hands. This time, she was not meekly obedient, nor was she trying to resist in a small way, but she was really refusing. Being pushed away, Rosen was unhappy and frowned at her. What do you mean? I just had the surgery and I felt unwell, she said. Don't do this with me. Rosen never cares about this. For him, as long as he is happy, he won't care about your health. In this regard, he is not a human being, he is simply a beast and has no humanity at all. Stepping back, Zhang Shiwei quickly took out a bottle of anti-wolf spray from her bag and pointed it at him. Stop. I came to you today not to do this with you. After knowing her for so long, this was the first time he saw her being so tough. Rosen was stunned for a moment, touched his chin with interest, but actually stopped, turned around, found a cigarette, lit it, and smoked. He said in one breath, Okay, tell me, what are you here for? Are you here to cover yourself with me and just chat? He teased her, his words sarcastic. Ignoring his sarcasm, Zhang Shiwei said, I'm here to discuss business with you. Business talk, Rosen sneered, on your side? If I'm not mistaken, you don't have the money to talk to me about business now, right? Besides, you still haven't been able to talk about business with me or promise me anything, he said with a look on his face. Being impatient shows that you have no patience at all. If it were before, Zhang Shiwei would have coaxed him softly and begged him, but now, she is already like this anyway, and she is not afraid of losing anything anymore. What about you? Have you done what you promised me? You promised me to come in. I will definitely win the prize in the annual competition, but there is something wrong with the formula. Didn't I help you get it done? Why, it's still not working. Yes, you have done it, but you have also destroyed everything about me. Luo Yuanhang found out, he doesn't want me anymore, he even wants to kick me out of Wulan. In this case, how can I participate in the annual competition and win prize? How can I gain a foothold in the fragrance industry in the future? This is all because of you, she accused angrily. Faced with her anger, Rosen had a disapproving smile on his face. Wai Wei, what you said is wrong. From the beginning, it was a mutual consent between you and me. Did I do what I promised you? Did you give me the formula? Are you also absolutely qualified to enter the selection of the annual competition? I seem to have heard that Wulan's application has been completed and passed, and he is just waiting for the final selection. If Luo Yuanhang is not willing to do so in your name, then it's his problem. You should look for him, not me. I will settle the accounts between me and him, so I don't have to worry about you, but I have paid so much for you, and you should always give me something in return. Raising his eyelids and glancing at her, Rosen's lips curled up in disdain. What do you want me to repay you for? I heard that there will be a tasting competition in France next week. I'm going to go, and you can think of a way. She has already found out that this tasting competition invites some well-known companies or individuals, and Su Yun will be a freshman. Represents the past. Although the tasting competition is not as grand as the annual perfume competition, it is still relatively respected in the industry because of its unique positioning. In addition, there is a threshold, so not just anyone can go, which makes it even more valuable. She is jealous. Crazy with jealousy? Why is it Su Yun's turn to get any good things done, but she, even though she has paid so much, has nothing left? She is not willing to give in, she will never give in. Rosen laughed out loud, and as he laughed, the cigarette ashes on his fingertips scattered. Wai Wei, are you still awake? You know who the people at the tasting party are. How do you think you have the qualifications to get in? He said mockingly. Frankly speaking, don't say yes. There are only a few of you Chinese who are qualified to go. I know I'm not qualified, but you are. Raising her head, Zhang Shiwei looked at him and said, so, take me there. Rosen is still quite famous in this circle. She doesn't know what class he belongs to in the foreign circles, but he should still be qualified to participate in this kind of tasting meeting. Raising his hand, he put out the cigarette butt, and said calmly, I am qualified to go, and I have indeed received the invitation, but why should I take you there? Can you give me a reason first? I know Su Yun is going to. She paused. There are too many eyes and ears at home, so it's hard to deal with her, but when you go out, I'll help you get her and let you vent your anger. Looking at her deeply, Rosen seemed to be thinking about whether this deal was worthwhile. This is indeed somewhat tempting to him. After a moment, he made up his mind. Deal. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 155. Chapter 155. What a clever little guy. Although Su Yun really wanted to know the source of the wood, she had no contact with him since Chuao rejected her that day. He seemed to have changed his mobile phone number, and the owner of the wood carving shop also said that he was not going. This person seemed to have disappeared out of thin air. Yao said he would help her find him, but he had never even seen that person. Finding someone was not easy, and she didn't hold out much hope. Things had to be prioritized. Before she could find someone, she had to go to France to attend a perfume tasting conference. This time, it was the first time for her to participate in such a grand event on behalf of the freshmen. The key was that there was not even a familiar person around her. Zhao Xian had work arrangements and couldn't come, and Arian couldn't follow either. The company sent an assistant named Ren Zheng. I heard that he was very experienced as an assistant, and the most important thing was that his French was excellent, so he sent her to follow. This journey has been very peaceful, but I am still unfamiliar with it, so there is still a sense of distance. Long-distance flights make people very tired. When they arrived in France and checked into the arranged hotel, Suyun fell asleep immediately and lost the jet lag. She had no idea that just 2 hours after checking in, Zhang Shiwei and Rosen also checked in at the same hotel. "Why don't you book a suite? I don't like such a small room looking around," Rosen said unhappily. Zhang Shiwei pointed at the ceiling. "Don't you want to take revenge? The room above you is Suyun's room. If you want to make a move, there is no chance yet." Rosen looked up and laughed. "Do you want me to cut through the ceiling and let her fall into my arms?" Rolling her eyes silently, Zhang Shiwei was really speechless about the IQ of men sometimes. "Of course not. But if anything happens, you can just say that she found the wrong room and came to your room by herself." "Ah." Rosen suddenly understood, smiled, and pinched her chin. "You are such a clever little kid. So, is this why you didn't book the same room as me?" He had said before that he didn't need to book 2 rooms. Anyway, he was short of a female companion recently, so we could just stay together. But Zhang Shiwei insisted on booking 2 rooms, and the 2 rooms were far apart, so he was very unhappy about this. "Well, how can you have fun if I'm here?" She smiled meaningfully and patted his shoulder, feeling that her plan was about to come true. Of course, she didn't decide to book 2 rooms just for this reason. First, she didn't want to stay in the same room with a pervert like Rosen, which would torture her to death. She had to cherish her body. For her, her body was her biggest asset, and she still needed to make bigger deals. Obtaining more benefits must not be compromised by Rosen alone. Second, she wants Suyun to be completely ruined during this trip to France. Suyun was woken up by a knock on the door. She grabbed her hair and went to open the door, still a little angry. "Who is it?" "Ms. Su, we need to review today's itinerary." It was Ren Zheng's voice. "Isn't it going to start tomorrow afternoon?" She opened the door, her eyes were sleepy and she felt a little resentful. Ren Zheng, just like her name, is too serious. From the time Suyun got to know her until now, she felt that she was quite capable, but she was very strict in doing things, so she was a bit incompatible with her. Yes, but the organizer in France has also arranged for the exhibition to be held tomorrow morning, and all the contestants can visit it then. Looking at the itinerary in his hand, Ren Zheng said, "In addition, there will be another exhibition tonight. It's a welcoming dinner, so in order not to be rude, you can prepare to take a shower, change clothes, and put on makeup now." "Suyun, is it okay not to go? She just wants to sleep now, and not sleeping well is really unpleasant." "Theoretically, yes." Before she could cheer, Ren Zheng continued, "Etiquette is not allowed. I have no manners, I just want to sleep." He turned around and walked back to the room, stretched out his arms and lay down on the big bed. Ah, so comfortable. Walking in after her, Ren Zheng stood there. "Miss Su, even if it is not from etiquette, from the perspective of human body function and self-regulation, you should not sleep anymore. If you continue to sleep, you will fall asleep at night. If you don't sleep, you will have no energy the next morning. According to scientific research, lack of energy in the morning will lead to a poor mental state throughout the day, which will directly affect the tasting competition in the afternoon. You are representing our company in the preliminary round this time. If the result of the competition is unsatisfactory because of sleep, I think even if the company doesn't punish you, you'll still feel bad about it, right?" "Suyun." She almost fell asleep again, but there was someone beside her who kept chattering, and she almost collapsed. For the first time, she discovered that she would break down even if she was ignored by others. However, they were completely from the company's standpoint and perspective. She wanted to get angry but felt it was unreasonable. He got up and sat cross-legged on the bed, feeling very sleepy. Okay, I understand. I'm going to take a shower and change clothes, okay. Ren Zhen nodded. Miss Su is very sensible. Suyun. Mingli, you big-headed devil. Then I will go back to my room first and call you in an hour. Suyun. Ah, this trip to France was already unpleasant from the beginning. But no matter what, she couldn't stay in bed any longer. She got up and took a shower. She finally felt more energetic, and then changed her clothes. Before she left, Arian specially came over to help her choose the clothes. She said she must wear a dress for such a formal occasion, so she brought 7 or 8 pieces. She thought they were cumbersome, so she threw out half of them. In the end, she brought about 4 sets, plus wear casual clothes, and that's pretty much it. I thought for a moment that Ren Zhen was talking about some kind of reception dinner in the evening, so I found a long skirt that reached the floor and added a small white shawl. Isn't this rude? Before Ren Zhen came to find her, she took the initiative to knock on the door next door. Ren Zhen was wearing a decent professional suit. It could be seen from her eyes that she was very satisfied with Suyun's outfit. Assistant Ren, where are we going now? She asked with a smile. The car arranged by the organizer will pick us up downstairs if we go down now. The time should be just right, Ren Zheng said after checking the time. Okay, then I'll have an assistant. Suyun was just being superficial, but Ren Zheng said seriously, this is my job. I also ask Miss Su to do her job well. I hope we can fulfill our mission and bring honor to the company during this business trip. Suyun. Where did such an old scholar come from? The company is really good at arranging things. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 156. Chapter 156 is not taken seriously at all. After arriving at the so-called Jifeng banquet venue, Suyun was stunned. She never expected that the so-called reception banquet would be like a wedding banquet. The only difference was that the address was chosen in a garden villa, and the venue was carefully decorated, with a buffet as the main theme, but there are just too many people. Seeing that there were people of all colors and speaking different languages, Suyun was a little confused. She held a cocktail glass and smiled awkwardly at everyone she didn't know. Then she tilted her head and asked the assistant, Assistant Ren, are all these people, are you here to participate in the tasting competition? Ren Zheng lowered his head and took a serious look at the information in his hand. According to the investigation results, it should be yes. What the hell? So many people? Isn't it said that there is a threshold and that it is not easy to get in? Let alone participating in the competition, just seeing so many people gave her a headache. Haha, so who is the organizer we want to meet? She felt that if she met and said hello to the owner, she could directly persuade them to leave. It would be better to go back to the hotel and have a hotel set meal than to be crowded here, especially since she was wearing high heels and her feet hurt when she stood. The person in charge of the reception is Miss Lisa, but I didn't see her. Assistant Ren pushed up his glasses. Did you not see it, or do you actually not know her? Suyun was very suspicious. She might not have met anyone from the organizer. Sure enough, Ren Zheng's face showed a trace of embarrassment that she had never seen before. Even so, he still said extremely seriously, I have never met anyone from the organizer, but I have their photos, and they are very serious. Remember, if I see you, I will definitely recognize you. Suyun. Okay, okay, you are the assistant, everything you say is right. Then when you see the organizer, remember to tell me. I'll go to the side to get some fresh air, she said, and wanted to run away. But with Ren Zheng's serious personality, how could he let her go? Miss Su, this is very rude. You should stay here to get to know the other contestants, which will be helpful for the competition. She wanted to say that what she wanted to taste was perfume, not these contestants, so how could it be helpful? However, don't argue with serious people. This is the wisdom of life. She covered her belly with one hand and said, okay, actually I want to go to the toilet, so, please give me a hard time. Do you want me to accompany you? She opened her eyes wide and immediately volunteered. No, no need. What if someone from the organizer comes, but we don't see or say hello, wouldn't it be very rude? Suyun said, imitating her tone, so please pay attention for me, I'll go up. I'll go to the toilet quickly, okay. He gestured to her, hurriedly rubbed oil on his solace and went to the empty space on the side. Finally arrived at an empty place with no one around. He let out a long sigh of relief and felt that his breathing was much easier. Had she known it would be such a reception banquet, she would not have come. It was really boring and uninteresting. I originally thought that the tasting competition would be a way to gain exposure and learn something, but I didn't expect it to be a boring social event. At the beginning, she refused all kinds of social interactions like this, so she could safely leave all operations to Luo Yuanhang and Zhang Shiwei. Thinking of these two people, she shook her head vigorously, bad luck. It's nothing, just think about what they do. She shook her head and then raised her head. She almost thought she was dazzled by a figure passing in front of her eyes. I go. You can't think of people during the day, and you can't think of ghosts at night. But she didn't read it out, she just thought about it inadvertently, it couldn't be so effective. Seeing Zhang Shiwei walking towards her step by step, Suyun rubbed her eyes, then turned to look into the distance on the other side. Wrong. This is France, and this is the welcome banquet for the tasting competition. Even if she, Zhang Shiwei, wanted to come, she didn't just come. He must be someone who looks very similar, or maybe I just saw him wrong. After confirming her thoughts, Suyun turned around again. Looking at the person standing in front of him, if his face is similar, then his eyes are really similar. The most important thing is that the voice that opens his mouth is all too familiar and annoying. What's the matter, are you surprised to see me? Zhang Shiwei couldn't hide her pride, just wanting to see surprise and displeasure in her eyes. Does she think that she is the only one who can come? There are many ways in this world. As long as you use your brain, you can get what you want. After confirming that it was her, Suyun sneered, you really don't know yourself. Her response made Zhang Shiwei very happy. The more unhappy Suyun was, the happier she became. Ha, do you think you are the only one who can come here? Suyun, don't forget, I have won many awards in the past 3 years. In terms of fame and works, I am better than you, so if you can come, why can't you come? She deliberately showed off, as if she was already a winner if she could come to this occasion. Suyun was too lazy to argue with her. She was just a little regretful that the good air had been polluted, so she turned to leave, shameless. Don't leave, Zhang Shiwei said, grabbing her wrist, who are you saying is shameless? Suyun, do you think you can make a comeback in Xinjiang? Don't forget that Xinjiang is just an inconspicuous small company in China. Internationally, China is not recognized at all. Don't say you are nothing. Even if you are top in China, you are not even as good as an ant here. What Rosen said to her that day, although she was not very happy, she had to admit that it was the truth. In the entire world, the top perfumers are from other countries. Although there are some outstanding ones in China, not to mention the very small number, even those few have joined other nationalities. In this way, there is almost nothing that can be done in China. In fact, Suyun also discovered this when she participated in the tasting competition. There is a threshold limit, not everyone can come, and invitations must be sent, but the base is still quite large, and even the organizer has not shown up to receive the event so far, which shows that it does not pay much attention to it. In other words, the current group at the venue may be regarded as cannon fodder in the eyes of the organizers. Either this competition is simply a gimmick, or the truly valued protagonists are not here. This is indeed the international perception, but this is also what makes Suyun very unhappy. How come there are no top perfumers in such a huge country? She would rather believe that it is not that there are none, but that the top ones are probably from ancient martial arts families like the Chu family, hiding in big cities. Oh, she sneered at Zhang Shiwei with a frosty face, if those of us standing here relying on our own works are ants, then who are you? A parasite that can only survive by relying on others and cannibalizing other people's hard work. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 157. Chapter 157. There's something good to watch now. What did you say? Zhang Shiwei's face changed. Just as he was about to continue speaking, someone came towards them and said, "Hi, Miss Su, we meet again." Suyun raised her eyebrows. Rosen. It seems that these two people came prepared. Is this coming for her? Then her face would be too great. Whether it is directed at her or not, she will not retreat from the fight if faced with a direct provocation. Suyun simply turned around and looked at them. Suyun smiled slightly and said, "It seems that the lesson learned last time was not enough. Is Mr. Rosen asking for a beating?" Her teasing and straightforward ridicule made Rosen feel embarrassed and reminded him of the loss he suffered last time. This is a public place. I don't think Miss Su will do anything reckless that would be beneath her dignity, right? It was because she would never dare to do anything casually in public that he dared to stand up and provoke him so carelessly. He didn't expect that a little girl's kung fu was so strong, which made it more difficult to attack her, but it was precisely because of this that it aroused his desire to conquer even more. If he could conquer such a woman, just thinking about it makes me feel happy. I'm sorry, I'm a reckless person by nature, and I don't have much status. If anyone wants to make trouble in front of me, don't blame me for itchy hands, stretch your muscles. As she spoke, she clenched her fingers, making a creaking sound in her joints. Hearing that voice, Zhang Shiwei's expression changed. Although she had never seen it with her own eyes, judging from Rosen's description and Luo Yuanhang's fear, Suyun's skills should be very good. She didn't know how to box or kick. You will definitely suffer a loss if you take action against her. So, we still have to be smart, not forceful. She thought about it for a moment, then chose the stakes. She put away the anger on her face, raised a smile and said, "Everyone is joking, why should we take it so seriously? Suyun, you and Mr. Rosen may have had a misunderstanding before. I actually brought him here to apologize to you. In a foreign country, we are in the same boat after all, and we should unite." Suyun had to admire the speed at which she changed her attitude. 1 second she was slandering her in a strange way, but the next second she was a compatriot in the same boat. "I'm in the same boat with someone like you. I'm afraid I'll drown even if I don't know how many holes there are in the boat." After glancing at her, Suyun ignored her and walked in the other direction. It's really hard to get in. Looking at her back, Zhang Shiwei's hands hanging by her sides clenched her skirt tightly, gritting her teeth angrily. "Forget everything else, she can't be arrogant for long here." Pointing to the ground, Rosen said meaningfully, "Where does she think this is?" "This is France, the capital of perfume. What can she do here?" "Neither." With the contempt that could not be concealed in his eyes, Rosen agreed to Zhang Shiwei's cooperation because he was very sure that he could get what he wanted here. Think this. Not long after Su Yun walked away, Ren Zheng found her. Miss Su, didn't you go to the toilet? But I went to the toilet and didn't find you. Maybe you went in after I went out, it just happened to be a side trip. Su Yun made a random excuse and no longer wanted to stay here. I don't feel well in my stomach. I may have a little diarrhea. Let's go back first. But, I saw someone from the organizer just now, and they just want to come to you. Ren Zheng frowned. We should say hello to the host before leaving, otherwise it will be very rude. Ren Zheng, I think you should make it clear first. Politeness is mutual and not unilateral. If as the host, we don't care about the guests and don't respect us, we don't have to be polite to them. She feels that this environment is very uncomfortable. If she didn't come here to represent a new student and the company, there would be no problem for her to go back home now. But Ren Zheng wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by a slightly accented English. Sorry, I just heard you saying that the organizer doesn't respect the guests and doesn't care about the guests. Is that right? The two of them turned around and saw a man with silver hair, who looked a bit old but well kept, and had a dignified and elegant temperament. His words were obviously meant for them. Ren Zheng recognized who the other party was at a glance. After taking a breath, he immediately responded, Sorry, Mr. Wu, that's not what we meant. So you mean, I heard it wrong. He touched his earlobe with his hand and said, But I think there is nothing wrong with my hearing. Mr. Wu, you may have misunderstood. Ren Zheng was still explaining, but Su Yun raised her hand to stop her. There is nothing wrong with your hearing, and you did not hear wrongly. That is indeed what I meant. The organizer does not respect the guests. Not all guests are treated equally, I do think so. Ren Zheng's face turned blue. She didn't expect Su Yun to be so strong. The key is whether she knows who the other party is. Wei. She still tried to struggle, but the other party no longer gave her this chance. Will looked at Su Yun, his amber eyes narrowed slightly. Really? I would like to hear why the organizer doesn't respect the guests. Su Yun, Su Yun. Ren Zheng was already calling her name in a low voice. Although it felt futile, he still wanted to try harder to stop her. But in the end, she still heard a voice that made her collapse. Su Yun looked at the silver-haired old man in front of her. He seemed to have a unique temperament. Although he was asking questions very kindly, there was a sense of condescension in his tone. He was asking, but he was questioning. He was not questioning. I don't agree with her opinion, even very unhappy. This so-called reception banquet was organized by the organizer. All the invited people were invited, but no one was arranged to receive them. I stayed here for nearly an hour, but even the person in charge of the organizer did not seen. Perhaps their conversation attracted the attention of the people around them, and many people had already gathered in their direction. As the organizer of the competition, I thought it would be fair to all participants if I would send out invitations. But I heard that the reason why the organizer did not show up was to greet more important guests. This has changed from how to talk about fairness. Even if you have to receive more important guests, you should not ignore other people and just send them away casually. In fact, Su Yun's words also represent the aspirations of some people, but most people don't have the courage to speak out, and no one will stand up and accuse the organizer of trying to stand out. The crowd of onlookers also included Rosen and Zhang Shiwei, who came after hearing the news. They stood at the outermost edge, watching with cold eyes. A sneer escaped from the corner of Rosen's lips, and he said lightly, "This idiot. Now there is something good to watch." Zhang Shiwei didn't know why. What do you mean? End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 158. Chapter 158. Ha ha ha, so embarrassing. Rosen held the wine glass with a look of leisure on his face. He looked across the crowd and glanced over lightly, his lips full of playfulness. Do you know who that person is? After taking a look, Zhang Shiwei shook her head. It was her first time here, how could she possibly know these people? That person is Mr. Wu. Not only is he the chairman of the organizer of this event, he is also a famous top perfumer in France. He is one of the few talented people who ranks high in the entire international perfumery industry. This number. Hand out to make an 8 shape, he said meaningfully. Do you think that if she offended him, that woman can still survive here, or in the French perfume industry? Hearing his explanation, Zhang Shiwei understood instantly and couldn't help but smile with joy. If you say so, she is dead. That's not necessarily the case. Rosen shook his head slightly and said, Mr. Wu is the most moody, and no one can guess his thoughts. Anyway, let's watch the show. Although he said this, Zhang Shiwei didn't take it seriously. Who would be willing to be accused of improper handling of things in public, especially a person with such a high status, criticizing the organizer for not doing things well in front of so many people, and even pointing out the difference between the other party. Treating others as superior or inferior doesn't mean they are snobbish and don't leave any face to the other party, isn't it? Su Yun is dead now? Zhang Shiwei thought gloatingly. Facing Su Yun's accusation, Mr. Wu sneered twice. I never said it was fair. Forget about Su Yun, everyone present was in an uproar. He didn't care about the reactions of the people around him at all. He paused and continued, this world is inherently unfair. You are all perfumers. Some people are born with a more sensitive sense of smell than others. Some people are born with a fortune that can support you to realize your dreams. There are also people who can't reach the heights of talented people throughout their lives. How can this be fair? It's unfair. Why should I be treated fairly? This is indeed a very unpleasant thing to say, but if you think about it carefully, it is also true. Many things are already unfair in nature, so how can they be absolutely fair? I don't require the organizer to be absolutely fair, but the minimum respect is the upbringing that people should have. So far, I think most of the people here have never met the organizer, right? She looked calm. When Will retorted, she didn't panic at all, and her face was calm and calm. Others discussed in low voices, and some nodded from time to time. It's not that they didn't have ideas, they just didn't dare to speak up. Will said nothing more, and kept staring at her with his amber eyes. The more silent and stalemate the atmosphere became, the more uneasy it became, as if an untimely bomb was about to explode at any time. There were obviously so many people present, but it was so quiet at the moment. You could hear a pin drop. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Mr. Wu was angry. As an authoritative boss and a master-level existence, to be taught such a lesson by a junior in public, I really can't stand it in terms of face. Besides, Ren Zheng was breaking out in a cold sweat. How could it be like this? She was extremely careful, but unexpectedly she bumped into the muzzle of the gun. If she had known that this was the case, she might as well have promised Su Yun not to come today. The most excited and happy person was Zhang Shiwei. All she could think about was, Su Yun is finished, Su Yun is finished, Su Yun is finished. She is really desperate, she has only been proud for a few days, and she dares to stroke the beard on the big boss's face. As long as Mr. Wu gives an order, I'm afraid she won't even be able to stay in this circle. But then again, that Mr. Wu is so powerful. If she can catch up with him, even if she just borrows his name, and lets him take her as his base, wouldn't her future be limitless in the future? Thinking about this, she had another idea in her mind. Just when the stalemate was about to break out, a clear and sweet female voice broke the solemnity. Hi, Daddy, I've been looking for you for a long time, and you are here. A girl wearing brown and gray waves and a princess skirt crossed the crowd and directly grabbed Mr. Will's arm. with a bright and youthful smile on her face. This smile obviously resolved the embarrassment at this moment. Will's tense and serious face turned into a puddle of love when he looked at the girl. "You are running around again." "I didn't, I was over there just now." The voice stopped suddenly, and she realized something was wrong and looked around. "What do you think I'm doing?" Looking carefully, in the circle of focus, not only she and her father were the only ones, but also Sue. Her eyes lit up and she shouted excitedly. Almost at the same time, she let go of Mr. Will's hand and took the initiative to put her arm on Soo-Yun's arm. "It's really you, huh? I read that right, it's really you. Why are you here? Yes, are you here to see me?" Soo-Yun. Melon-eating people. Renjeng. The happiest person in the audience was this girl who was jumping up and down and talking to herself. "I knew you wouldn't deny me as your friend, but then again, why didn't you contact me again? Do you know the sachet you gave me lost its flavor, and I found many substitutes, but none of them were as good as yours. You just happened to be here, so tell me." Well, cough. After 2 dry coughs, Mr. Will interrupted her. "Lisa, don't be too naughty." After all, there were so many people present, so he couldn't reprimand her directly, so he reminded her tactfully. "Daddy, I'm not naughty. Do you remember the Sue I mentioned to you before? She was the good friend I met when I was in China." As he spoke, he took Soo-Yun's arm and pulled her forward, making her stand in front of Mr. Will. "Sue, let me introduce to you, this is my dad." Soo-Yun. Will. "Ha ha ha, so embarrassing. Hello, I am Lisa's friend, my name is Soo-Yun." It was Soo-Yun who broke through the awkward atmosphere first and reached out to say hello. Looking at the hand she extended, Will looked at his daughter who was smiling happily, then shook hands with Soo-Yun. "Nice to meet you." "What a pleasure it is to meet you." However, what is very surprising is that the intense atmosphere that was about to break out disappeared like this, and the strong smell of gunpowder suddenly dissipated without sparking at all. Some people even envied Soo-Yun. They didn't expect that she actually met Mr. Will's daughter. Not only was this a step to the sky, it was also like stepping on a ladder. As long as Mr. Will gave a word of guidance, it would be sooner or later to become famous in this circle. Thing. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 159. Chapter 159. Thank you. Of course, the most disappointed person was Zhang Shiwei. She was expecting a good show, but she didn't expect something to pop out of the sky. "Lisa, it's really hateful that you suddenly disrupted the situation." Hatefully gritting her teeth, she stared at the smiling girl angrily, feeling that she had ruined her good deeds. Wait a minute. Why does she think that girl looks familiar? Just now she said that Soo-Yun was a friend she met in China, but she and Soo-Yun had known each other since college. She had almost no friends of Soo-Yun whom she had never met before, only a few. The name Lisa seems a bit familiar. Turning her head and staring at the girl's profile for a while, a trace of memory flashed through her mind. It turned out to be her. As for Soo-Yun, after the crowd dispersed, Lisa kept pestering her and talking. "Sue, I changed my number and sent it to you after I returned to France. Why didn't you contact me again? I thought they've all forgotten about my friend." "You sent me a new number." Soo-Yun was surprised. "I didn't receive it." She also thought of this former friend. Lisa came to school as an exchange student at that time, but no one knew her identity at that time, let alone that she was the daughter of Mr. Will, the internationally famous perfume master. Most people thought they were just ordinary foreign students. At that time, Lisa was not as cheerful as she is now. She had almost the same attributes as her, and she didn't have many friends. I have forgotten how we became friends at that time, but when Lisa came back to China later, she made a sachet for her. Everyone likes to make fragrances, but most of them are essential oil perfumes. The traditional Chinese sachet purses are rare in Lisa's opinion. They are filled with various scented dried flowers, and some little details are added according to her ideas. Although the adjustments and changes are not worth much, they are just a token of your heart. Unexpectedly, Lisa liked it very much and kept it by her side. Ah, you didn't receive it? I was just worried that you didn't receive it, so I sent it 3 times, she pouted, feeling a little disappointed. But he soon became happy again, but it doesn't matter. You see, even if we didn't receive it, we still got in touch and met again. It's called fate, right? Yes, your choice of words is very precise, Suyun smiled. It was really a joy to see old friends in a foreign country. By the way, are you here to participate in the tasting competition? Lisa held a small piece of cake in her hand and asked as she ate it. Suyun raised her eyebrows at her and said with a smile, "Don't you think I came here specifically to see you?" Lisa waved her hand with a smile, "Hey, I said that on purpose. Just now you and my dad were about to get into a fight. If I didn't say that, how could I ease the atmosphere, right?" Suyun. She knows everything, but she just pretends not to know anything to break the stalemate. She is such a clever little girl. Even though we haven't seen each other for a few years, we still feel like old friends. Suyun smiled and nodded. Then, what if I really fight with your father? We can't fight. She stuffed a piece of cake into her mouth and shook her head, disapproving. There are so many security guards here, and there are several overt and covert bodyguards around my father. You will be pressed down before you make a move. Fall down. Suyun. Thank you. So you saved me. She felt very funny when she heard the little girl's adjectives. But no matter what, she had good intentions. Lisa showed a sweet smile. You're welcome. Just teach me how to make a sachet. I liked it, and then I tried to imitate you and wanted to make one myself, but I couldn't make it. Your father is a top perfumer. Doesn't the perfume he makes not have the flavor you like? After thinking about it, Suyun asked. Yes, there is, but the perfume is different from your sachet. I carry that one with me and it always maintains a long-lasting fragrance. I also like to put it on the bedside when I sleep. It feels very safe. Sue, did you put some drug in it? I feel like I'm falling in love with it. Haha, if it was drugged, your dad would be able to tell it right away. Suyun looked around and could no longer see Mr. Wool. You don't have to look, my dad just came over to see me. He has important guests to meet, Lisa said as if she knew what she was looking at. Well, the people we stay here are all the most ordinary guests, she nodded, but she actually didn't completely disagree with Will's words. Life is not fair, and it is normal to be treated differently. What she is actually unhappy about is the organizers' indifferent attitude. There are important guests who should be treated specially, but as ordinary guests, since they are invited by you, they should not be ignored like this. If you don't care at all, why invite them to fill the scene? Lisa raised her head and laughed. I heard what you just said, and I actually admire you. Admire me? Yeah. I've grown up and I've never seen anyone dare to talk to my father like this. I just saw that his face turned green. It was really funny. Ha ha ha. She laughed without any scruples. Come. Suyun was a little dumbfounded. If you say this, I think you are complimenting me, so should I be touched and honored to be the first person to anger your father? You are allowed to be proud. Suyun, then, aren't you angry? After giving her a strange look, Lisa said, why should I be angry? You are right, my father is indeed a bit snobbish. He is a very arrogant person, and not everyone can take him seriously. Peng Peng, he has so many people praising him that he is used to it. His status and strength are indeed worthy of praise. In fact, she has also dabbled in Mr. Weir's works. She also likes some of the most classic works, but she has never met him. Let's not talk about him, let's talk about you. How have you been in the past few years? Have you become a master of perfumery in China? Lisa said half-jokingly. She sighed when she mentioned herself. In recent years, she has been really hard to describe. Hearing her sigh, Lisa was stunned for a moment. Just as she was about to ask her what was wrong, she heard a voice calling her name. "Hi, Lisa, long time no see." Lisa turned her head and saw a familiar face, smiling like a flower at her. "I haven't seen you in a few years, and you are getting more and more beautiful. I almost didn't recognize you." End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 160. Chapter 160. Have you ever looked in the mirror? Lisa really didn't recognize her. Zhang Shiwei acted like an old friend, smiled and patted her shoulder. "Look, noble people tend to forget things, don't they? I am Zhang Shiwei, where is your sister Weiwei?" Lisa. Suyun. This is really good at getting married. When did Zhang Shiwei become so familiar with Lisa? To be precise, most of her friends in college were men. For girls, it was necessary to see if there was any profit to be made, otherwise they would not even bother to say a word. At that time, I had little social experience, and I didn't know how sinister people's hearts were. Zhang Shiwei took the initiative to make friends with her and showed her kindness. He thought she was born to be such a warm-hearted person and truly regarded her as a friend. Unexpectedly, she had already made plans step by step. Calculated step by step. Now, he probably saw that Lisa was Mr. Will's daughter and came here deliberately to get close to her. Seeing that she didn't respond, Zhang Shiwei felt a little embarrassed, but she was not prone to stage fright because of her all-around skills. She quickly turned her attention to Suyun. "Have you forgotten? Suyun and I were in the same dormitory before. We often eat together, at the small restaurant in front of the school, pickled fish." As expected, Lisa's eyes lit up when she mentioned food, and she nodded repeatedly. "Ah, yes, the pickled fish in front of the school is really delicious. I haven't been able to eat it since I came back. When you mention this, I really want to drool. Is that little restaurant still there?" Successfully picking up the topic, Zhang Shiwei took the opportunity to sit down next to her. "Yes, the boss is old and has given the business to his son, but the taste is still the same. Whenever I have a chance, I'll treat you to it." Really, Lisa was very excited. "I really want to fly back to eat right now." "Haha, let's go back together then. You haven't been here for a long time, right? So city has changed a lot. I will show you around then. In fact, in addition to pickled fish, there are many delicious foods. You can take your time. Eat slowly." As Zhang Shiwei spoke, he looked at Su Yun's face. She was quite proud. It's just a little girl. It's not easy to have a close relationship. All she has to do is find someone she likes and is interested in and fall in love with them. Maybe this Lisa is the best stepping stone for her. Stone. Lisa nodded repeatedly, but suddenly turned her head to Suyun and said, "Then, you must treat me to a lot of delicious food." Zhang Shiwei. Suyun raised her eyes and glanced at Zhang Shiwei lightly, then said slowly, "Okay. Su, the tasting competition is tomorrow. Are you going to leave after it ends? Stay here for 2 more days. I can take you to some fun places. By the way, you haven't been to my house yet, so I'll take you come to my house and play." She was really enthusiastic. Suyun smiled and said, "Don't worry, she won't leave so soon. I will stay for a few days, and we will have a chance to meet again. Ah, that's right. Anyway, we are all in touch now. If I miss you, I can go to you at any time. After thinking about it, Lisa took out her phone and said, by the way, add WeChat. Soo-yoon was a little surprised and said with a smile, do you still have WeChat? Yes. I can also watch short videos over the wall. Don't think I'm so old-fashioned. Okay, she took the initiative to add Soo-yoon's WeChat ID. Jang Shai-wei on the side hurriedly found her mobile phone, opened WeChat, and leaned over, yes, add one for easy contact later. However, before she could scan it, Lisa had already put it away. Okay, I should go back, otherwise my dad will come looking for me. Let's get in touch again. Lisa, I haven't. Jang Shai-wei stood up quickly, but Lisa didn't look at her at all. She just waved goodbye to Soo-yoon and ran away quickly in the other direction. Seeing that the person was already far away, I clenched my phone so hard that I wanted to burst it. It's a step you want to step on, a stone you want to step on, but not everyone can be your stepping stone. Be careful not to fall, Soo-yoon sneered. I can step on it, know how to step on it, that's my ability. Soo-yoon, what qualifications do you have to say anything about me? Do you think you have become a big boss? You are not taking advantage of the relationship like me. What is the difference between you and me? Why are you pretending to be noble? Being completely ignored by Lisa, Jang Shai-wei was very embarrassed and vented all his anger on Soo-yoon. Speaking of relying on oneself, in fact it is not the same clinging relationship, but I was unlucky this time and did not get on the little girl's train. But it doesn't matter, it's just a child, and she is not her ultimate goal. Since the little girl won't give her a ride, she will find the most direct one and avoid detours. A person with a dark heart thinks that everyone in the world is as dark as she is. Soo-yoon glanced at her. Have you ever looked in the mirror? You dash. Before she could curse, Soo-yoon had already walked with her assistant and left the venue. Rosen, who had been watching the show for a long time, walked over slowly and said next to her, I thought you could really get on a good boat. Looking at the retreating figure, Jang Shai-wei felt angry. Why are you anxious? There is an old saying in our country that you can't eat hot tofu if you are anxious. I'm afraid you won't be in a hurry. In the end, let alone the hot tofu, you won't even be able to eat the dregs of tofu. Rosen laughed at her without concealment. With her little thoughts, he naturally you can see it. Jang Shai-wei wanted to climb up the ladder. For just a formula or an annual competition award, she could sell her body to him and let him do whatever he wanted. Now that she saw Mr. Wool, her desire was written on in the eyes, it is clear. He didn't care, he had almost had enough fun anyway, he just wanted something new, but he liked this woman's greed very much. We were all on the same road, so maybe she could make good use of it. Being ridiculed by him, Jang Shai-wei turned to face him. Don't just talk about me, what about you? Dear Mr. Rosen, we have been here for a while. How did I find that you are not as good as you said? What's important? When she was in China, she was not very clear about Luo Sen's status in foreign circles. She only thought that he was strong and capable and that by following him, she could gain some fame in the world. But after arriving here, she sensitively discovered that Luo Sen didn't seem to be as powerful as she thought. Even speaking, here, he is not a figure. After all, the organizers didn't treat him differently, and didn't even come over to say hello. In other words, he, Rosen, was no different from anyone else here. Maybe it's just an exaggeration. End of this chapter.